All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're putting together a blueprint. But this isn't for a building, it's a blueprint for personal sovereignty, for thriving in a world that's constantly trying to grab your attention and your energy. To start, we've got to understand the battlefield we're actually on. This line is from the legendary General Sun Tzu from over 2,000 years ago. It's all about strategic patience. But doesn't it feel kind of modern? That feeling of just being exhausted by the constant pressure all around us. And that really brings us to the core question here. In a world like this, how do you not just survive, but actually win? And I don't mean win a fight, I mean win at the game of life. The answer, you'll see, isn't about fighting harder. It's about thinking on a whole different level. Okay, so you can't win a game if you don't know the rules or what the playing field looks like. And let me tell you, our modern battlefield is nothing like the ones in the history books. It's not a physical place at all. The real war is happening in a psychological space. This is what military strategists are now calling fifth-generation warfare. The main weapon isn't a missile, it's information. The main target isn't a building, it's your perception of reality. The ultimate goal in this kind of conflict? Control over how and what you think. Now, some pretty radical critiques of our society argue that this constant stream of influence acts like a psychological leash. The idea here is that our natural need for real challenges and autonomy, what the source text calls the power process, gets hijacked. And instead, we're just kept busy with trivial pursuits, running on a path someone else laid out for us. So, if the main battle is for your mind, where do you even start to defend it? Well, it's not out there, it's in here. The ancient philosophers had a saying for this: as within, so without. It means your outer world is just a mirror of your inner world. So all real power, all real control, it has to start with you mastering your own mind, your inner citadel. At the very core of this inner citadel is one powerful concept: your self-image. Just think of it like the master operating system for a computer. Dr. Maxwell Maltz, in his incredible work Psychocybernetics, called it the internal blueprint that controls everything about you. And here's the kicker. Your life results can never, ever exceed the limits of this internal image. Now here's the secret sauce. This is the mechanism that lets you upgrade that blueprint. Your nervous system, the part of your brain that guides you toward your goals, literally cannot tell the difference between a real, actual experience and an experience that you just imagine with incredible detail. This is why visualization works. It's not just daydreaming, it's a way of programming your mind for a new reality. So, how do we actually do this? Well, there's a simple framework. First, you have to create a crystal clear mental picture of the person you want to be. Second, you start acting as if you are already that person. You fake it till you make it, literally. Third, you dig deep to find your real self underneath all the junk and self-limiting beliefs you've picked up over the years. And finally, and this one is so important, you have to completely forgive your past failures. They're not who you are. They're just data points. You can't build an amazing future if you're still carrying the weight of the past. Okay, so once that inner citadel is strong and secure, then we can turn our focus outward. Now we get to move on to the art of strategy. And we'll see how we can take that internal power and use it to be effective in the real world, using wisdom that's been proven for thousands of years. This is maybe Sun Tzu's most famous line, but it's also the most misunderstood. He's not saying you should avoid conflict. He's saying you should win so intelligently, so completely, that an actual head-on fight becomes totally unnecessary. You make your victory a sure thing before the battle even begins. So what happens if we combine the wisdom of these three absolute masters of strategy? We get a really powerful toolkit. Sun Tzu, he teaches us to create opportunities that are so good, people just naturally want to take them. Machiavelli, who gets a bad rap, teaches a super important lesson. You either have to get people totally on your side or build something so powerful that any opposition just fizzles out. And then there's Musashi, the swordsman, who teaches us to be patient, wait for the perfect moment, and then act with total, decisive force. That's all great, but how do we actually use this ancient strategic thinking in our lives today? Well, we translate it into the modern language of value. The 21st century way to break resistance without fighting is to create an offer that is so good it's almost impossible to refuse. This number, it tells a pretty powerful story. It's the exact amount of cash the entrepreneur Alex Hormozi had left in his bank account on Christmas Eve, after he just wired away his last $22,000. I mean, he was right on the edge of complete and total failure. But that rock bottom moment, that's what forced him to completely change his strategy. From that absolute low point, Hormozi created a concept he calls the Grand Slam offer. The whole idea is to engineer an offer that is so packed with value that it's impossible to compare it to anything else. It completely removes you from the competition. People stop asking, should I choose you or them? The only question they have is, how do I sign up? So you really have two paths you can take. The first path is to compete on price. It's a race to the bottom, a commodity game where you're always just trying to be a little bit cheaper than the next guy. The other path, the Grand Slam path, is a race to the top. You compete on value. And when you do that, you get to command premium prices because you're not even in the same category as everyone else. So how do you actually build an offer like this? Well, there's a formula, and it's brilliant in its simplicity. You do everything you can to maximize two things: the dream result your customer wants, and their belief that they can actually achieve it. At the same time, you do everything you can to minimize two other things: how long it takes them to get the result, and how much effort and sacrifice it costs them. You basically solve all their problems for them. And what happens when you apply this equation? Well, Hormozi ended up selling a program for this much, $42,000 a year. He sold it to gym owners who, on average, were only making about $35,000 a year in profit. Just think about that for a second. How is that even possible? It's possible because you stack so much value into the offer that the price becomes almost irrelevant. If I could show you a guaranteed way to make an extra $239,000 this year, would you pay me $42,000 for it? Of course you would. It's a no-brainer. The answer becomes obvious. And that is breaking resistance without fighting. So let's pull all of these threads together. We've looked at the nature of the modern battlefield, we've gone deep into the inner self, we've covered timeless strategy, and we've talked about modern value creation. Now let's assemble it all into one single operating system for becoming a sovereign individual. So here it is. This is the blueprint. It all starts with you, with mastering your own inner state and your self-image. That's the foundation. From there, you become the creator, learning and applying the rules of strategy. Next, you go out into the market, not as just another competitor, but as an engineer of unbelievable value. And when you integrate all three of these layers, the outcome is personal sovereignty. And we'll end with one more piece of wisdom from Sun Tzu. Now, this doesn't mean surrendering. It means understanding, truly deeply understanding. Whether it's in business or just in life, real success comes from understanding what other people want so well that you can create solutions they are magnetically, irresistibly drawn to. So, we'll leave you with this one last question to think about. The world will happily offer you a pre-built life. You can be a tenant, living in a house someone else designed, following someone else's rules. Or you can choose the sovereign path, the path of the architect, the one who designs and builds their own reality from the inside out. Which one are you going to be?